Good morning. Here is today's Korean economic news briefing. Today, a significant focus remains on the government's comprehensive efforts to mitigate the economic fallout from the prolonged Middle East conflict and address persistent supply chain vulnerabilities. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy and Finance, Koo Yoon-chul, shared an emergency economic headquarters meeting and ministerial meeting this morning, outlining a series of proactive measures designed to stabilize the domestic economy. One of the most pressing concerns has been the potential for supply chain bottlenecks, particularly for critical industrial materials. To counter this, the government announced special exemptions for import registration procedures for chemical substances like paint, which have faced supply concerns. This measure will drastically shorten the time required for imports, aiming to ensure stable supply for industries. Furthermore, the government plans to expedite customs clearance for raw materials even before their arrival in port, a move designed to minimize delays and reduce logistical burdens. Connecting directly to consumer daily life, the government is also tackling issues related to general waste bags, or jongyangjae, bags. In response to potential supply disruptions and price increases, especially those stemming from surging shipping costs due to the Middle East conflict, the inspection period for these bags will be dramatically reduced from 10 days to just 1. This will allow for quicker distribution and inventory adjustments by local governments. In a crucial relief for manufacturers and consumers, the government will exclude the freight surcharges arising from the Middle East crisis when calculating tariffs on imported raw materials for these bags. Additionally, the direct procurement limit for waste bags through the National Procurement System, NARA-JONGTAEO, will be eased, fostering competition and potentially lowering costs. For food manufacturers, temporary relaxation of labeling regulations will allow the use of stickers for origin marking when utilizing alternative packaging materials, addressing potential shortages. Deputy Prime Minister Koo underscored the government's commitment to swiftly devise supplementary measures to address potential consumption constraints arising from the Middle East war's economic impact and energy-saving initiatives. He emphasized the government's role as a helmsman steering through rough waters, highlighting the urgency and gravity of the situation. This comprehensive approach signals a strong governmental resolve to protect both industrial stability and consumer welfare amidst global uncertainties. Turning our attention to the broader macroeconomic landscape, the ongoing Middle East conflict continues to cast a long shadow, not just on supply chains but also on global fiscal health. IBK Investment Securities predicts that the U.S. fiscal deficit could surpass 6% of its GDP this year, largely driven by war-related expenditures. Historical data suggests that military spending in past Middle East conflicts has typically accounted for 0.3% to 1.0% of U.S. GDP. This mounting deficit, coupled with the potential for further escalation, is a significant source of anxiety for global investors. Next week, the U.S. Federal Reserve is set to release the minutes from its last FOMC meeting, followed by critical data on U.S. growth rates and CPI. While the Fed maintained interest rates last month, discussions among some attendees about potential rate hikes underscore concerns about persistent inflation. The IMF, for its part, suggests that the U.S. Fed has little room to lower interest rates over the next year, implying a sustained period of higher rates, which could impact global capital flows and borrowing costs for economies like ours. Meanwhile, in a contrasting economic development, Vietnam aims to become one of the world's top 30 economies by 2030. Targeting annual growth rates exceeding 10% between 2026 and 2030, alongside stable inflation and fiscal management. On the domestic financial markets, we've observed significant volatility. Yesterday, the market experienced a triple weakness across KOSPI, the Korean won, and government bonds, triggered by President Trump's speech on Iran, which dashed hopes for de-escalation and led to a sharp rise in WTI crude oil prices. Both KOSPI and KOSDAQ saw sell-side circuit breakers activated. However, today, the Korean stock market showed a strong rebound. The KOSPI surged over 3%, closing above 5,370, while KOSDAQ also saw robust gains. This upward movement was largely driven by institutional investors' net buying and a return of foreign capital, with tech giants like SK Hynix and Samsung Electronics showing particular strength. The won also strengthened against the dollar, reflecting improved market sentiment. In this environment of heightened volatility, market analysts recommend investors to consider undervalued small and medium-sized ETFs as a potential strategy. Moving to the industry front, the acceleration of the semiconductorization of home appliances is evident, with robot vacuum cleaners leading a chipset competition. Manufacturers are shifting focus from physical performance metrics like suction power and battery capacity to AI computing power and security, necessitating advanced chipsets. In other tech news, LS Eco Energy is forecasting record high performance for the first quarter, driven by increasing demand for power grids and the proliferation of AI data centers. Their new ventures in rare earths and submarine cables are also progressing rapidly. Amidst global trade tensions, particularly with the U.S. considering season 2 inches of tariffs under the Trump administration, experts are urging Korea to leverage its strengths in semiconductors and nuclear power as strategic assets. While President Trump's administration imposed up to 100% tariffs on imported pharmaceuticals, countries with trade agreements, including Korea and Japan, face a more manageable 15% tariff. This highlights the need for a proactive and reciprocal negotiation strategy. Meanwhile, Korean battery manufacturers are demonstrating strong performance, with the top 3 companies receiving over $2 trillion in tax credits. They are strategically expanding production lines from electric vehicles to energy storage systems, in the U.S. to maximize Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, subsidies. The theme of artificial intelligence continues to shape our economic future. Experts emphasize the need for domestic neural processing units, or NPUs, to facilitate a more affordable tokenomics structure for an AI-powered society, moving away from GPU-centric ecosystems. However, the geopolitical risks associated with AI infrastructure are also becoming apparent, as evidenced by reports of Iran attacking Amazon data centers in Bahrain, highlighting the vulnerability of ICT and AI assets in the Middle East conflict. Despite these global uncertainties, South Korea saw a robust 9.67 trillion in foreign direct investment during the first quarter, marking the second highest Q1 performance on record. This strong inflow was largely concentrated in promising sectors such as semiconductors and AI data centers, underscoring Korea's appeal as an investment destination. Finally, in the real estate sector, recent government regulations restricting multi-homeowners' access to mortgage extensions are creating ripple effects in the rental market. Analysts warn that this could lead to a decrease in Jaeon's lump sum deposit rental listings and an increase in overall housing costs. Paradoxically, despite government efforts to curb rising home prices, mid to low-priced apartments in Seoul's outskirts are seeing significant price jumps. This is attributed to limited supply meeting high demand, particularly from buyers who can utilize policy loans. The Seoul metropolitan government is taking steps to address housing supply by approving plans for 657 new apartment units, including 247 long-term Jaeon's homes, near Daerum Station. That concludes today's economic news briefing. We've covered a wide array of topics, from government policy responses to global geopolitical and macroeconomic trends, and their direct impact on our industries and daily lives. For investors and general viewers alike, it's crucial to closely monitor global geopolitical developments, particularly the Middle East situation and U.S. economic policy shifts, as these continue to be primary drivers of market sentiment and economic stability. Domestically, the effectiveness of the government's supply chain and consumer support measures will be key to navigating these turbulent times. Thank you for joining us. We wish you a productive day.